Hello, fellow Star Wars fans. It's Drew Kaplan, Star Wars Maven. I'm here to talk about this new book that's coming out in just 2 days from now on September 7th. Star Wars Life Day Treasury, Holiday Stories from a Galaxy Far, Far Away is, as you can imagine, and has a bunch of stories that talk about Life Day. Now, for those less familiar with what is Life Day, it originally appeared in the 1978 movie Star Wars Holiday Special. And even though that movie is no longer canon, that movie focused on basically Chewbacca's family on Kashyyyk, and they were celebrating Life Day, basically kind of like their Christmas in the winter time. And that's what that movie was all about. No longer canon. This kind of, resurrects the idea of Life Day, especially as celebrated on Kashyyyk, which I'm going to get to in a moment, a little bit more about that. Now, this book kind of is similar to a couple other previous books that have been published. One is called Star Wars Myths and Fables, written by George Mann, and another one, Star Wars Dark Legends, also written by George Mann. Now, both of these books have a bunch of different stories and tales and fables. The Myths and Fables is a really cool one because it's very much like sort of like medieval stories. You have knights and dragons. It's really neat. Dark Legends is, well, as you can imagine, it's a fairly dark book, and both of them were fun, enjoyable, and like these, this new one, this Life Day Treasury is also targeted towards 8 to 12-year-olds. Now, people of all ages can enjoy these stories, and whereas Myths and Fables had more of a sort of a medieval, light, upbeat sort of feel, and this one had a darker feel, this one has more of a sort of a winter warmer, just sort of, warming, soul warming, I guess you could say, tales in it. Now, similar to those books, this one also is written by George Mann, although he is now joined by Cavan Scott, who's writing for a lot of different Star Wars. He's got books out, comics, etc. Now, throughout this book, there are 8 different stories that they're not all in one particular era. In fact, the opening story takes place in the High Republic era. We have some stories that appear in the Imperial era. We have a story that happens in the New Republic era. So it's not confined to one specific time era within Star Wars. It goes in different ways. Now, this is, I mentioned, these stories are fun, they're light. You don't even have to know much about Star Wars to enjoy them. Yes, there are some familiar characters. Now, for instance, there's one that takes place with Ewoks. We have the protagonist is Wicket, but a younger Wicket. This is pre-episode 6. This is as a child. Now he's joined by some familiar characters, Chief Chirpa, Tebow. So there's some familiar characters. Now even the first story here, which appears in the High Republic era, features a younger Stellan Gios. Now, for those who've been reading the High Republic books, he may sound familiar, but he's younger in the story than he is in the High Republic era books that have so far been published. I do want to read a little bit of the introduction to provide a little bit of a context about what is going on in these stories. For millennia, Life Day was a festival celebrated only by the Wookiees of the planet Kashyyyk. It was centered on the fabled Tree of Life, thought by the Wookiees to be the source of all life, both on their lush green world and in the stars beyond. At its heart, the festival celebrated the core truths of Wookiee civilization: family, love, and happiness. And of course, that's where it started. Of course, Life Day is not unique. Many planets and cultures have midwinter celebrations of their own, born from ancient times when people huddled on the coldest of nights, dreaming of the warmth of days to come. On Coruscant, there is Solstice Tide. On New Alderaan, there is the Festival of Winter's Heart. The Ewoks of the Sanctuary Moon of Endor tell tales of the White Fall, while the Mon Calamari celebrate the turning of the year's tide. Whatever the lore, the celebrations themselves bear startling similarities. Gifts are exchanged and loved ones dine together, sharing feasts both grand and humble. There are songs and there are games. Dwellings are decorated and traditions observed. But most of all, there are stories shared with friends and relatives around crackling fires and flickering glow rods. So that's what goes on in the stories here. That's a broader context. Although, for me, one of the really cool highlights of this book is the 8th and final story of this book, which takes place on Kashyyyk. And it takes place now, for those who've seen the Star Wars holiday special, you know that takes place during the Imperial era. And we see Lumpy, who is Chewbacca's son, and Itchy, who is Chewbacca's father. They're waiting around, seeing if Chewbacca can make it through the Imperial blockade of Kashyyyk. Here, in this story, it's actually during the New Republic era. So the Empire is no more, but we do get to see Lumpy and Itchy, although Lumpy no longer prefers to be called Lumpy. He's no longer a kid. He wants to be preferred to be called Waru. In any event, we now get to see that these characters are indeed canon now. Chewbacca's father, his son, and so that's really neat to see that coming full circle back from the Star Wars Holiday Special. Life Day in Kashyyyk is canon, as well as his son and father of Chewbacca. So that's Star Wars Life Day Treasury. If you want to get it, go get it. It's enjoyable, or maybe it's a really good, actually make a really incredible holiday time gift, whether for Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever it is. This is a cute little book of stories. And thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.